Hello and welcome to workshop number 6 for the January 2025 online event with Venetia Ramsey from Scrapworx. We continue working with our Barticle collection, and for this layout we're going to be doing mainly mixed media, and we're going to add a little bit of the collection for embellishing and that kind of thing. So what I did is I just took all the little offcuts that we've got left over from the previous projects. I took this die set, this butterfly die set, and I just die cut a whole stack of the little butterflies. So I have my stash of what I want to use in the layout off to the side here. Okay, so I just took all the different pattern papers and whatever was left, whatever would fit, just cut a whole lot of butterflies. So I die cut some butterflies. I used a butterfly punch. I have this small little one from Tim Holtz, and just punched out a whole stack of these tiny little butterflies. All right. It's important that you know what I'm going to use so you can see where my color selection comes from. Then from one of the pages that's got the little girls at the bottom, I cut 2 strips that measure 1 centimeter by the 30.5. You can use any of the sort of solids in the pack. You don't have to stick with blue. You can even change your color palette here. You can go with the oranges and the browns. And then this little piece here was also left over. So I just, with 2 pieces, I just punched out, used a scallop border punch to punch out the scallops. And then from the sentiments, I've used some of the little leftover wording. So I've got bless, pretty, giggle, cherish, and adore, and there's another little of the butterflies. Then for your photographs, you're going to need 2 that measure 10 by 15 and 2 that measures 8 by 8. And you're going to cut out of your light cardstock 2 pieces to measure 10.5 by 15.5 and 2 8.5 by 8.5. And then out of the dark 11 by 16, you'll need 2 of, and 2 at 9 by 9. So those are kind of the bits and bobs you're going to need to be able to put this page together in form of your patterns and the little embellishing. Right. So then I'm going to work with the distress inks, particularly the distress oxides. Those are going to be the main colors I work with. All right. So the colors I've chosen to work with is Old Paper, Victorian Velvet, Tattered Rose, and Weathered Wood, right? And then I'm probably going to add some of the Distress Spritz. I think I'm going to add this Weathered Wood as well. I think I just want to use it for a little bit of splattering, so I've got that off to the side. I'm going to use this stencil, and then I want to use this butterfly. We're going to use you can't see that. This butterfly comes from also Tim Holtz stamp set. This one, it's got the little butterflies and the hearts in it. It's CMS 217, and it's just called watercolor. So it's from one of the earlier ones. But I've chosen this butterfly because it has quite a bit of solid and then a little bit of this empty area, and that's kind of what I'm going for, is I want to use a little more of the solids. We'll play around with that as well. Okay, and like I said, I have this stencil that I think we can use to add a little bit of extra to the background. You'll need a piece of acetate for the background. We're going to use this to put some ink on. You'll need some water and a watercolor brush to help with the adding of the ink. For the title, obviously I'm going to use the title that's left over, Butterfly Kisses. So I'm going to work with Lost Shadow, Distress Paint, Black Soot, Archival ink, a little bit of Scorched Timber, and I have this, I'm going to use some glaze, walnut stain embossing glaze. So you will also then need the clear embossing ink to be able to put the glaze on. So that's just some of what I think for now that I'm going to use. As the page evolves, obviously we'll be adding a few little extras. I have some extra stuff off, like I have this, I always have this on hand, my script stamp, just in case, you never know. I have some water in a bottle to rinse off my brushes, and I think that's good for now to get us started with creating the background. So that you have a good result, it's always good to work with a good quality background for your mixed media paper. I like working with a Vicky Bruton foundations paper, the white. I think this gives us a good, it reacts really well with inks. You can also use, I think it's Prima Art mixed media paper. It's quite their watercolor paper is very good, and they have a mixed media that also responds well. So we're going to start by creating the title, and all you're going to do is just paint on a little bit of Lost Shadow. Okay. I'm just going to add the so you just want to get that foundation color on. Lost Shadow is a very, very light gray. I'm going to use the other brush, it'll go a bit quicker. Oh, I took that one. There we go. So remember that don't leave your grey card, your whatever chippy you work with, grey board or the chippies, don't leave it in the paint that you're working, because the acrylic paint does work as an adhesive, and if it starts to dry on the back of your surface that you're working with, it will stick to wherever you're at. So I like to just every now and then just move positions. Making sure I'm getting some good coverage. So basically I don't want any of the background to show through. There we go. Okay, so the other items you will need to have on hand will help speed up the drying process is a heat gun. Okay, and then for cleanup, obviously you need some paper towels, or I prefer to use just a nappy. And then we can just make sure we've got that paint spread evenly everywhere. Alright, that's looking good. So I think we'll give that 2 seconds to dry. It's almost dry. And then we're just going to add another layer. Because like I said, the Lost Shadow is very, very light. Go. That is pretty dry. I'm happy with the way that's turned out. So what I want to do is, see why it's always good to have this stamp on hand, is I'm going to stamp with black archival ink. I'm going to stamp the script over the butterfly kisses, making sure I'm getting a good amount of ink on my stamp. Okay, and then I'm just going to stamp that script stamp a little bit here and a little bit there. Doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but that works nicely for me. Okay. Just wipe off any excess ink, put that off to the side. I'm just going to give it a quick dry because it is ink on paint. Just needs a few extra seconds to dry. There we go. Happy with that. Okay, so this is where your where we need the scorched timber distress paint. Okay. And an old brush, because we're just going to distress the butterfly kisses. Can you believe I've already used up, I think this is my second bottle of scorched timber. It is such an awesome brown. Okay, and I'm going to put this over here. I just need a little bit. If I need more, we can go and get it out. Okay, so I just want to get some of that paint off my brush. And I've done this with you many, many times. You just need to pull the ink, the paint brush. I'm using a flat brush. And all I'm doing is gently pulling along the edges of the grey board, pulling that paint onto the surface. I just wanted to just catch on the edges. So for me, that's too much. I'm just going to take it off, work it in a little bit, take some paint off and work from the edge. So the brush is held quite flat. So you can see it's just kind of dirtying it up. That nice grungy look. And there we go. I think that's enough, a little bit of the grunge added to the background or to the title. Just going to take a little bit of, get rid of some of this paint on here. All right. So the next step now is to add a little bit of the embossing glaze. I just need a piece of paper. All right, so I'm just going to fold this in half so I've got something to catch it with. I'm going to add some embossing glaze. You can use the one, the one with a dabber or an ink pad. I like to use the work from the refills. So we're just going to take, there's my brush, just to make sure I've got it clean. Right, reasonably dry. I'm going to pick up this and just add it to the surface. I'm not worried about getting it on everywhere. I just want to get it, because I'm going for quite a kind of a distressed look. I just want to get it on here and there. And the nice thing is that with this, especially with this, you can see exactly where it is, because where you apply it goes a bit shiny. In some areas I'm putting it on thicker than in other areas. There we go, good with that. I'm just going to clean that up. Okey-dokey. Pop that onto something where you can catch the embossing glaze. And you can, I know, I'm not sure it'll pick up on the camera, but some places are much thicker than other areas. I'm just going to sprinkle on to cover the entire surface area. we go. Just going to let it sit on there for a few seconds. And then just tap off any excess. You can see I missed a spot there, cover it up. Happy with that. So I'm going to put that off to the side where I'm going to heat set it. And put this back in the bottle. If I leave it on the table, I will inevitably blow it all over the place with the heat gun. So it's best we just put it right back inside the bottle. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to use a heat gun to set this or to melt this. Okay, I have that off to the side. I am going to put on muted. So you want to aim this in the direct over the area that you want to melt. So I'm going to aim it here a little bit. As soon as it starts to melt, I'm going to move it along. Once it melts, I'm going to just probably shift it around a bit depending on the effect. If I like the solid glass effect, I will stay with that. But if I feel that it needs to look a little bit more distressed, then I'm going to over melt in areas and just move the glaze up and down. Okay, so I'm going to put on some music and get this melted. Just remember, before, you'll see that when I switch it on, I'm going to wait till my heat gun warms up before I start to melt. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. And there we go. I'm happy with the way that's turned out. You can see on the areas where I've kind of missed, there's bits and pieces of places where I missed putting the embossing glaze, so the grey, the lost shadow is coming through, and you can see where the stamping is coming through, and it's just given the background, the title, a bit of character without too much effort. And I chose these colors because I knew that it would offset the butterflies. You know, if I put a butterfly here, it offsets that little butterfly really, really well. Okay, so that is your title done and dusted. I'm going to quickly clean up and we're going to be back to do the background. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I'm going to show you, do the one's background with you, and then I'll do the other side. I'll just put some music on to do the other side because it'll just be a repetition of what we're doing now. So I want to create like a base page. I already know that my photos are going to go more or less across the middle here. So I just need to get some ink on. If I don't get it quite in the middle, then it's not going to be the end of the world. I'm going to work with the antique old paper first. It's got this nice greeny effect, which I think, green base, which I think picks up very well with the pattern paper. I'm going to add some, spritz on some water. If you're worried about getting, you know, spraying water everywhere, you can always pick up water in your, the water that you have off to the side. And I'm just going to use my brush to mix it up on my mat. And you can see by adding the water how the oxides starts to oxidize, how the ink starts to oxidize. So I'm going to do that and then just get some of this on here. All right. Put that off to the side, and I'm going to spritz my background just a little bit so that I'm using a wet on wet technique, and then just use the kissing technique with some acetate to apply the ink to my background. You can use the acetate to roll the ink from one side to the other so that you get some movement. So like a seesaw, take it up, take it down. This is just practice. You need to play with it and just see how the ink moves for you. But the best is, if you see when you push down, the ink flattens. Maybe I must do it where that's no. Push down, the ink flattens. When you lift up, the ink pulls to a point. So it's a matter of moving that ink around. And remember, while you're busy with it like this, the ink is going to dry. So the longer you take to add the next layer, will depend how the ink reacts on your surface. So if it kind of like goes sticky, but it's not really. It looks like it's going sticky, but it's not actually sticky. There we go. So I put quite a bit down here. You can easily go in and just add a little bit of water, like that. Okay, just leaving that water to sit there for a few seconds. And then you can go in with a paper towel, or I'm going to use the nappy, and just pick up those water droplets. Okay, so here's where you need to, with this next step, is where you need to make a decision. Do you want your colors to sit on top of each other, or do you want them to blend? If you want your colors to sit on top of each other, then you will give this layer a bit of a dry. If you're wanting your colors to blend, then you would leave this wet and add the next color, and then they will blend together and create a new color. I want it a little bit dry. I'm not going to dry it too much. I just want it to set just a little bit before I add the next color, which is going to be weathered wood. Okay. So here I'm going to do the same thing, just working with weathered wood. I'm going to squish some onto my mat. Okay. Going to spritz that with some water. Use the brush to break it up. Now there is already some old paper on here, and I don't mind. It's going to mix in quite nicely. And then just spritz on kind of in the areas where you want to add the weathered wood, because then you know where to do your kissing technique. Right, so that is there. Again, just adding a little bit of water. Now remember, adding water means the ink underneath will reactivate. So now I'm going to just add some weathered wood in the blank spots, the whiter areas. And yes, it's going to overlap with some of the old paper, and that's okay. You can't work strictly in one area without overlapping the other area. Because remember, we're just trying to create a background. I'm trying to pick up the colors that are in this collection. So I want to go with the greens and the grays. And these were the greens and the grays that I thought would work well to create the background. See what I mean about that? It looks like it's sticky, but it's not. So I'm just giving it a time to absorb into the paper and then lift. And if I don't want to get those like little peaks of ink, I'm just going to wet that. And then it gives me the opportunity to work it in a little bit more. So the nice thing about mixing weathered wood and old paper is that it starts to create a new color, basically, which is like a browny gray. Okay, so we can go in and we can just add a little bit of water here where it's made the little like peaks of color, and we can go in with a brush and just break it up. There we go. See, it's made a bit of a harsh line over here, so I'm just going to splatter on some ink and then just break it up. Pick up some here, bring it down here, pick up some more. Perfect. Should be a little bit left on here that I can also use. Okay, and again we can just add a bit of water. There we go. So those little peaks of ink that it creates, I call them the maps. I just break up the maps because it looks like a whole lot of little goodies on a map. There we go. Very happy with that. See if I can get some ink off here. Yeah. There we go. So quite happy with the way that's turned out. Remember, it is just my background. I want to be able to add a little bit to this. So I'm going to just dab off. Okay. Right, so I'm going to put this aside to carry on drying, and then I'm quickly going to do the other side. I'll speed up the video and I'll see you in a bit. So there we go, the backgrounds are created. I'd like to add a little bit of stamping. So I'm going to be stamping with the oxide, so this will react a little bit with this, especially because I am going to probably add a little bit of water. I'm not 100% sure where this is going to go. So because I know that this is this way, my layout, my background, I like this way. Confuse myself. My background is going to look something like that. I know I've got my photographs going across here, so I'm going to use this little spot here as my tester with my butterfly, and I'm going to stamp with some tattered rose, and I'm just going to create like a butterfly background. So basically creating my own pattern paper, but I don't want the butterflies to be like too, I want them to be there but not there. So like that. I like the way that has come out. Okay, so I'm going to just stamp a few of these like random. So normally I would, like I did just now, I will add the add the ink this way, but because I'm wanting to create a little bit of a distressed look, I don't mind to pick the ink up like that. And I'm just going to create like a grid, a butterfly grid. I'm not too worried if it's a perfect stamp or not. I just want to get the illusion of a butterfly in the background there. This one might need a little bit more ink on it. And I'm not going to do the whole page either, just sort of like a diagonal. Maybe this one a little bit more ink. And this one could do with a little bit more ink. Oops, a little bit of offset there. Okay. I think that'll do. And then I'm just going to take the brush and just add a bit of water to the butterflies. And you can see that it's reacting with the ink underneath. What I'm trying to do is create like a ghost kind of effect. So I'm trying not to go over the line. I'm just working with a wet brush with what's on there, and you can see here and there it's starting to pick the ink up. If I hold it up closer, you see this one here, how the ink is starting to lift. So I'm going to put on some music, and I might add another 1 or 2 butterflies. Then I might add once we start to add the photographs, but I'm going to put on some music and carry on doing that. So I'm going to put some water here because it's easier than, that's dirty, easier than trying to reach over there all the time. And I know if I put my water bottle here, I'm going to knock it over. Okay, so I'll do another one with you before I put the music on. So water on your brush, and where you can see here, where the ink, I'm just working it up. And if you take some off, you can actually lift that ink. Same here. Just working that ink in. That's why I said to you, it doesn't matter if you don't get a perfect stamp. You basically just need to know more or less where your butterfly is going to be. And that's why I can fix that one where I did a bit of a, oops, the double stamp. So you can see when the water starts to pool and I move it away, I'm pushing the ink closer to the edge of the butterfly, because that's, I kind of want like just the outline, but without the harsh lines. So just picking up some of that ink. You can put some more water here. Just give it a bit of time and then go in to pick up some of this over here. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest, and I will see you in a bit. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to add a little bit of stenciling and stamping. So I have already done the other side. You can see how nicely those little butterflies have come out. And I've kind of left open areas. I haven't covered the entire background with it. So we're going to add some stenciling and stamping. And this is what it will change it to look like. So it'll look something like this. If this is not something you like, then perhaps you're going to either just do the stenciling and leave out the stamping, or leave it both out. I kind of think that the stenciling and stamping just kind of like sets the butterflies into the background the way I want it to, and it just adds that little something. I could maybe have added a little bit of less, listen to that, I could have added less stamping perhaps, and just gotten a few areas, but I know where I'm going with the layout, and I know that I can get away with, because it looks pretty busy now, but once you start to add the little extras, you can see that that background actually makes everything pop off the page. Okay, so you have an idea where I'm going. Okay, so I chose to use this stencil, and I'm going to work with the old paper. All right, so I've got the oxide ink off to the side. So the stenciling is very easy. You don't even have to line up the stenciling. Can you see where all the little open bits are? That is where we're going to add the stenciling, and when you're brushing it on, you want to try avoid the butterflies. You just want to get it in the open areas like that, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be a little extra something that you add like that. So that just adds a little extra. We're going to move it down. I'm just going to put a little bit here. I'm trying to avoid the butterfly. I don't want to get any of the stenciling over the butterfly, so just here and there. See, very random, not even worried about lining it up the stencil. You want a very rough kind of background. So just in all the gaps, that's where I'm moving the stencil, so I can just pick up and cover up that background. I think here we'll do a little bit. This one I do need to line up just a little bit, because I should have gone a little bit over. But you can see, even though I haven't really, it doesn't really matter, because it's going to be like random stenciling added in here and there. The aim, avoid the butterflies. Try stencil around your butterflies, and you don't have to cover an entire area. You just want to get a little bit of stenciling on here and there. So I can go in there, avoid that butterfly, get a little bit here and a little bit there. We can get this top corner. You can see what a nice effect that creates. That's why I say if the stamping doesn't appeal to you, you can leave that out and just stick with the stenciling. But I think that the stamping is what then just like marries everything together. It gives the random stamping purpose and forces the butterflies to the back of the page. Almost done. I can actually add a little bit more there. So a very good way to practice getting your stenciling so that you don't stencil the whole entire stencil, just using bits and pieces of it. I think I've got it everywhere, maybe just a little bit there. Okay, and we could maybe fill up a little bit more here. Here we go. So just like that. Okay, so then the next step would be to stamp with the weathered wood and the script stamp. Making sure I get the entire stamp inked up, and I will start from the middle there and work my way out. I'm just going to cover the entire background with a stamp. And then a little bit on edge here. Now I know that my photos are going to run across here, so I'm just going to go up and across. If you want to practice, you can carry on going all the way across. I kind of know where I'm going with the layout, so I sort of know where I need the ink to be. There we go. Right, and then it's important, I think, if you're working with the oxides, just to get that ink off your stamp when you're done. You just need to add a bit of, use some water. You can use a paper towel if you want, but then that just gets that ink off. Okay, and then I can wash them properly later. So far so good. Happy with the way this is coming together. Right, so if I put the two together now, you can see where we're going with the layout. I said I know where I'm going, so I might have to stamp a little bit more there. So I'll just bring that in and do that. I'll add a little bit of extra here, but there we go. Okay, so I'm going to quickly clean up and then we'll be back to actually put the page together. I'll see you in a bit.